The spaceship hummed quietly as it approached the silent colony. It had been 50 years since the last message came through. 50 years without a single word, no signals, nothing. The crew inside the ship stared at the dark planet below, their faces tense with worry and curiosity. The colony should have been full of life, full of people, but now it was a ghost world waiting to be uncovered. As the ship touched down softly on the cracked landing pad, the control room's lights flickered. The air inside the colony was thick with stillness. The captain pressed a button on the radio, sending out the usual call. "Colony base, this is Horizon Team. Do you copy? Respond, please." Silence answered back. No crackle, no static, no voice. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The science officer stepped forward, pushing open the heavy metal door that led into the base. Inside, the control room was empty. Panels blinked weakly. Some screens showed garbled data, but the chairs where people once sat were bare. No sounds except the software machines running by themselves. Then, suddenly, a strange noise echoed from deep inside the colony. It was low, almost like a growl, but also like something mechanical shifting. The crew froze, listening. "Did you hear that?" one whispered. The captain nodded slowly. "Something is alive, but it's not human." They moved forward carefully, flashlights cutting through the dim corridors. The colony's streets were empty. Houses stood abandoned, windows broken, doors hanging open. Dust floated in the stale air. No signs of struggle or battle, just silence and shadow. The life support system showed active readings. Oxygen levels were normal, water supplies flowing. Yet no one was there to breathe, to drink. The machines had kept running, but the people had vanished. Or worse, something had taken them. As they explored, the crew found strange symbols carved into walls, doors, and even floors. The marks looked like warnings, etched by someone in a hurry or in fear. The science officer scanned them, but no code or language matched anything in their databases. The feeling of unease grew heavier with every step. In the main data room, they found the colony's last log. The recording flickered to life, showing a tired voice. "We thought it was safe. We thought we could control it. But we were wrong. They are not what we thought." The message cut off abruptly, leaving the crew with more questions than answers. Suddenly, down a dark tunnel nearby, something moved. A shadow passed quickly behind a broken pillar. The crew's light swung toward it, but nothing was there. The silence pressing again, colder and deeper. The captain ordered the team to regroup. "Stay close. We don't know what we're dealing with." The crew felt the weight of eyes unseen, watching them from the darkness. Outside, the planet's wind whispered through the empty streets. The colony was no longer a place of human life. It had changed. It was waiting. Something inhuman had taken its place, and the crew was about to learn the hard truth of what had happened during those 50 silent years. The silence in the colony had not lasted long. After their first eerie exploration, the crew pushed deeper into the abandoned structures. Among the ruins, the scientist, Dr. Mira, found something unexpected. A hidden door sealed behind heavy metal panels, almost invisible beneath layers of dust and dirt. The panel flickered weakly when she touched it, and with a hiss, the door slid open, revealing a secret laboratory buried deep underground. The lab was cold and sterile, but it smelled of chemicals and something else, something faintly metallic and wrong. Inside, machines blinked with life, and strange tanks lined the walls, filled with dark liquid. Inside those tanks floated creatures unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Dr. Mira stared in shock. These beings had human features, but twisted, elongated limbs, eyes too large and glowing faintly. Their skin was pale and almost translucent. As she stepped closer, she noticed strange veins of an unknown color pulsing beneath their flesh. It was clear now. These creatures were part human, part something alien. She quickly pulled up the lab logs on a nearby terminal. The recording showed hurried messages from scientists working before the colony went silent. They spoke of experiments combining human DNA with alien genes found in samples collected during earlier secret missions. The goal was terrifying. to create super soldiers, being stronger, faster, and able to survive in any environment. The hope was that these soldiers would defend the colony from any threat. But the tone of the messages darkened with time, filled with fear and regret. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the lab. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows. The crew snapped to attention as a deep growl echoed from the tanks. One of the creatures broke free, the liquid draining rapidly as it pulled itself out. Its movements were jerky but strong, a mix of animal instinct and calculated precision. Panic spread quickly. The crew grabbed their weapons as other tanks began to crack and hiss. More of the hybrid beings escaped, moving silently through the corridors like hunters in the dark. The crew fought desperately, but the attackers were fast and difficult to hit. Their claws tore through metal and flesh alike, their glowing eyes watching from the shadows. During the chaos, one crew member, Alex, was separated. He ran down a narrow hallway, his breath coming fast. Suddenly, the lights cut out. The darkness was complete. He fumbled for his communicator, but it slipped from his hand. Then a whisper echoed in the blackness, soft and chilling. "We watch you. You are not alone." The crew searched for Alex, shouting his name through empty halls. But he was gone. Only his last message played back on the radios, a trembling voice filled with fear and warning. The lab was no longer just a place of forgotten science. It had become a trap, a place where the past horrors of the colony reached out to pull the living into darkness. The creatures were not just experiments. They were the silent watchers, waiting to finish what had begun so many years ago. Captain Rhea stood before the heavy steel door of the bunker. It was covered in thick dust, but unlike the rest of the colony, this place had been sealed off deliberately, its lock untouched by time. The crew watched in silence as she keyed in the override sequence, the door groaning open to reveal a cold, dark chamber filled with strange equipment and glowing panels. Inside, floating holograms flickered to life. Images from a colony's past played out before their eyes, revealing scenes no one had expected. Colonists moving about their daily lives, then suddenly stopping, their eyes glazing over. Then strange tendrils, thin and glowing, slithering from hidden places to wrap around heads, penetrating the skin like living wires. The captain's breath caught as the images showed the colonists transforming, faces twisted into monstrous forms, bodies changing into something unrecognizable. This wasn't just silence, Captain Rhea whispered. The colony was taken over by something inhuman. The holograms told a story of a parasite, invisible to scanners at first, that slowly infected the colonists. It did not kill them outright, but controlled their minds, turning them into puppets. The infected still moved and spoke, but their thoughts were no longer their own. They became weapons of the parasite's will. The crew exchanged worried looks. Trust, once easy, now became fragile. Everyone wondered, who was still human? Who might already be infected without knowing it? Suspicion grew heavy in the air. Back on the ship, the AI system beeped urgent warnings. Multiple systems showing irregular activity. It reported signs of parasitic infection detected in environmental controls and crew biomonitors. Captain Rhea ordered full medical scans of crew, but the results were confusing. Most were clear, but one crew member, Jordan, showed odd patterns. His brain waves were irregular, and he occasionally lost focus, muttering strange phrases. The tension on board rose. Jordan became distant, avoiding the others. His eyes lost their usual warmth and gained a strange emptiness. The crew tried to confront him, but he only smiled coldly and whispered, "You don't understand. They are part of us now." Late one night, during a patrol in the colony, two crew members heard noises coming from the ventilation shafts. Suddenly, Jordan appeared, his movements jerky and unnatural. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Without warning, Jordan lunged at one of them. The attack was quick and violent. The shocked crew member barely managed to defend themselves before Jordan disappeared into the shadows again. Captain Rhea's voice crackled over the radio, calm but firm. "Lock down all sectors. We have an infected among us." The crew felt the weight of the truth. The parasite was not just a threat in the colony. It was already inside their own team. Survival now depended on their ability to fight Not just the monsters outside, but the darkness creeping within their own ranks. Darkness swallowed the broken streets of the colony. The survivors moved carefully, their breaths shallow, ears sharp for any sound. The infected were everywhere, their twisted forms lurking just beyond sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. The colony was no longer a home. It had turned into a deadly maze. Every shadow could hide death. Captain Rhea led the group through narrow corridors and shattered doorways. Her face was tight with worry, but her eyes burned with determination. "We must use what's left of the colony's defenses," she said quietly. "If we can trap them, we might have a chance." The crew nodded, their trust in her clear despite the fear gripping them all. The old defense systems had once been designed to protect the colonists from outside threats. Now, they would be their shield against what the colony had become. Moving quickly, the crew reached the control room. The panels flickered as Rhea worked to bring the systems back online. Sparks flew, and alarms began to hum softly. The defense turrets, once silent for decades, hummed to life. They were old but deadly. Outside, the infected creatures sensed a change. They snarled and moved faster, closing in on the crew's position. The survivors positioned themselves behind cover, weapons ready. When the first infected lunged toward the entrance, the turrets fired with mechanical precision. Bright bolts of light cut through the darkness, striking the creatures down one by one. The crew moved like ghosts, using the defense grid as their eyes and ears. But the infected were clever. They learned to avoid the turret's line of fire, slipping through cracks and hidden passages. The fight was far from over. In the heat of battle, Dr. Mira shouted, "There's something here, old weapons, buried underground near Sector 7. They might help." Without hesitation, Captain Rhea led a small team through broken tunnels and rusted ladders to the site. There, buried beneath layers of dirt and metal, they uncovered crates marked with faded Earth insignia. Inside were weapons from a long-forgotten era, pulse rifles, energy grenades, and suits that enhanced strength and speed. The team armed themselves quickly. The weapons hummed with power, a sharp contrast to the silence that had ruled the colony for so long. Back above, the infected grew more dangerous. They adapted to every trap, every attack. Their eyes glowed brighter, their movements more coordinated. It was clear they were learning, evolving. Suddenly, a shout echoed through the corridors. Marcus, one of the strongest crew members, had been surrounded. He fought fiercely, but the infected were too many. Seeing his chance, Marcus threw a grenade into the cluster, buying time for the others to escape. Captain Rhea reached Marcus's side as the explosion cleared. He was badly wounded, breathing hard but smiling. "Go," he urged. "Get out while you still can." Tears blurred Rhea's vision, but she nodded. "We won't forget you." The survivors fled deeper into the colony, the weight of Marcus's sacrifice heavy on their hearts. As they moved, their communicators picked up a strange signal. It pulsed slowly, steady and strong, coming from deep below the colony, somewhere no one had dared to go. Captain Rhea's voice was steady, but filled with new resolve. "Prepare yourselves. We're going down." The hunt was only beginning. The crew moved cautiously into the underground tunnels, following the strange pulsing signal. The air grew heavier with each step, thick and humid, carrying a faint electric charge that made their skin prickle. The walls were no longer cold metal or cracked concrete. They seemed almost alive, pulsating with a slow rhythm that matched the signal's beat. Shadows flickered as if something unseen stirred within the dark. Captain Rhea led the group with a steady hand, her flashlight cutting through the dense gloom. "Stay close," she whispered. "We don't know what's waiting for us down here." The tunnels twisted and narrowed, forcing the crew to squeeze through tight spaces. Strange markings covered the walls, ancient symbols that glowed faintly, casting an eerie blue light. The deeper they went, the more the strange energy in the air intensified. It was both terrifying and mesmerizing. After what felt like hours, they entered a vast chamber, unlike anything they had seen before. At its center lay an enormous artifact, half buried in the ground but clearly ancient and powerful. Its surface shimmered with strange energy, veins of light pulsing in a slow, steady rhythm. The signal came from here. Dr. Mira stepped forward, her eyes wide with awe. This isn't human technology," she said softly. "It's alien, and it's powering something dangerous." The crew gathered around, watching as the artifact pulsed, sending waves of light across the chamber. The air hummed with power, making their teeth chatter despite the warmth. Lieutenant Soren frowned. Could this be what's causing the infection? The creatures, where did they come from? Possibly, Mira answered. The artifact might be spreading something through the colony, controlling the infected. It could explain how they're evolving so fast. Captain Rhea studied the artifact carefully. If this thing is the source, we have two choices. Destroy it and stop the infection. Or try to use it, maybe control it. The idea made the crew uneasy. To wield an unknown alien power was risky. But the alternative, letting the infection spread, was worse. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The artifact's pulsing grew erratic, faster, stronger. From the shadows of the chamber, a deep growl echoed, low and guttural. A massive shape began to stir in the darkness. An alien creature, covered in thick armor-like skin, eyes glowing red with fury. It had been in hibernation, guarded by the artifact, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The crew froze, hearts pounding. The creature stepped forward, its heavy footsteps shaking the chamber. Its breath steamed in the air, smelling of decay and power. "We need to get out of here," Soren said, raising his weapon. "Now." But Captain Rhea shook her head. "No, we can't run. This creature is the key to the colony's nightmare. We have to face it. We have to end this." Arguments broke out among the group. Some wanted to escape immediately, fearing death. Others, fueled by anger and loss, wanted to fight back, even if it meant their lives. Tensions rose as the crew divided into two groups, one ready to retreat, the other ready to stand their ground. Suddenly, the artifact pulsed violently, brighter than before. A sharp crack split the air as the chamber walls began to shimmer and fade. A swirling portal opened above the artifact, glowing with intense light and energy. The alien creature roared, stepping closer to the portal. It seemed drawn to it, as if calling something through. Captain Rhea stared at the portal, her voice steady despite the chaos. "This changes everything. Whatever is on the other side, it might be our only chance." The crew braced themselves. The abyss below was no longer just a place of darkness. It was a gateway to the unknown. And whatever waited beyond, it was coming through. The portal pulsed with violent light, casting eerie shadows over the crumbling walls of the underground chamber. From its swirling depths, more creatures poured through, twisted, unnatural horrors that seemed born from nightmares. Their limbs were misshapen, faces distorted with hunger and rage. The air filled with guttural growls and screeches, an unholy chorus that shook the very ground beneath the crew's feet. Captain Rhea tightened her grip on her rifle, eyes sharp and steady despite the chaos around her. The rest of the crew scrambled to take positions, their weapons raised and ready. Every breath felt heavy, every heartbeat a countdown to the final fight for survival. "Hold the line," Rhea shouted, her voice cutting through cacophony. "We fight for the colony, for what's left of humanity." The first wave crashed into them like a tidal force. Alien monsters lunged forward with terrifying speed, claws slashing through the air. The infected colonists, once human but now lost to the sickness, moved with unnatural agility, their eyes glowing with malevolence. The crew fired their weapons, flashes of light piercing the dark tunnels. Bullets tore through flesh and armor, but for every creature that fell, two more took its place. Lieutenant Soren ducked behind a broken wall as a massive infected colonist slammed the rubble down. "They just keep coming," he yelled, reloading frantically. Dr. Mira worked frantically to keep the wounded alive, her hand steady even as the battle raged around her. "We can't hold them forever," she warned. "We need a plan, something to stop the flow." The AI system, integrated into the colony's defenses, had been monitoring the portal. Its voice crackled over the comms, calm and urgent. "Captain, the portal remains unstable. If left open, it will bring endless horrors." Rhea's mind raced. The AI was their last hope, to close the gateway. But doing so meant risking everything. It might destroy itself in the process. The battle grew fiercer. Old allies turned on each other as infection spread rapidly. Crew members, bitten and scratched, began to change, their minds lost to the sickness. Trust broke down under the pressure. Paranoia and fear gnawed at them like a disease. In the midst of the chaos, a sudden roar echoed from deeper in the tunnels. The massive alien creature they had seen before, the guardian of the artifact, charged into the fight. Its armor glinted in the dim light as it smashed through the enemy ranks. But its presence did little to turn the tide. The monsters and infected colonists pressed on relentlessly. Rhea met eyes with Soren. "We need to get to the control core. The AI can shut this down, but we have to hold them off until then." They fought their way through the twisted tunnels, bodies dropping around them. Every corner held new dangers, ambushes by infected, snarls of alien beasts, the walls seeming to close in tighter with each step. At the control core, the AI awaited. Its voice was calm, almost sorrowful. "I will attempt to close the portal. This action will disable all colony systems. I will not survive." Rhea nodded, feeling the weight of sacrifice heavy on her shoulders. "Do it. We'll cover you." The AI began the shutdown sequence. Lights flickered and dimmed, the hum of machinery slowing. Outside, the creatures howled in frustration as the portal's light dimmed. But the creatures were not finished. They surged in one final wave, desperate to keep the gateway open. The crew stood firm, firing until their weapons were empty, fighting with the last reserves of strength and hope. One by one, the crew fell, some to claws, others to exhaustion. Dr. Mira shielded a wounded comrade, her face set with determination. Soren covered their retreat, taking down monsters with fierce precision. The AI's voice faded as the portal shrank, the light collapsing into darkness. Finally, with a shudder, the gateway sealed shut. Silence settled over the tunnels. Only a handful of the crew remained. They were battered, bloodied, but alive. Captain Rhea lowered her weapon, eyes scanning the ruined chamber. "We did it, for now." Suddenly, a crackling sound came from the communication console. The screen flickered to life with a transmission from Earth. A cold, serious voice warned, "It's spreading. Prepare for invasion." Rhea's face hardened. The fight was far from over. The nightmare had only just begun. The survivors returned to Earth, their faces pale and eyes heavy with the weight of what they had seen. The world they came back to was familiar, yet it felt different. The skies seemed grayer, the cities quieter. The knowledge they carried was a dark burden. The inhuman threat was real, and it was coming. At first, the governments of Earth refused to believe their story. They called it a hoax, a tale of madness born from trauma. Reports were dismissed as paranoia or exaggeration. Officials insisted there was no proof, no evidence of the horrors that had swallowed the distant colony. The survivors grew frustrated, their warnings falling on deaf ears. Captain Rhea stood before a council of leaders, her voice steady but urgent. "We fought monsters beyond imagination. They are spreading, and if we don't act now, Earth will be next. We cannot wait for proof when it's already too late." But the council members exchanged doubtful looks. "We need more evidence," one said. "Panic will only cause chaos." Determined not to let fear and denial destroy their chance to save humanity, the survivors decided to take matters into their own hands. In secret, they formed a group, a hidden force dedicated to fighting the alien threat before it could consume Earth. They called themselves the Hunters. In a hidden base far from prying eyes, scientists, soldiers, and engineers worked tirelessly. They studied the alien technology recovered from the colony, merging it with human weapons and defenses. The result was powerful and unlike anything seen before, advanced weapons capable of striking at the heart of the inhuman menace. Mira, the scientist, led the research. The infection is unlike any virus or parasite we've known. It's adaptive, fast, and deadly. But if we understand its source, its weakness, we can stop it. The survivors trained hard, learning to use the new weapons and tactics. Their bond grew stronger, forged in fire and loss. Every day was a reminder of what was at stake. Their families, their homes, their entire species. Meanwhile, rumors began to spread. Strange sightings, unexplained disappearances, shadows moving where no one should be. The world's leaders could no longer ignore the signs. Panic began to creep into cities, but still, many refused to face the truth. One night, as the hunters gathered in the base's war room, a message echoed through the secure channels. It was a transmission from a distant part of the galaxy, a warning from another civilization that had faced the same threat. "We are not prey," the message said. "We are the hunters now." The word struck a chord deep within every survivor. This was their moment, their chance to fight back and reclaim their future. Captain Rhea looked at her team, eyes burning with resolve. They thought we were weak, that we would hide and die. But we are not prey. We are hunters, and we will stop them, together. As they prepared for the battles ahead, the world held its breath. The darkness was coming, but humanity would not face it alone. The screen faded to black. A distant roar echoed through the silence. The fight had just begun. If you enjoy my videos, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps my channel grow, and I will make more good videos for you.